The keycard lay forgotten beneath a potted palm in the hotel lobby, half hidden in shadow. A small hand reached down to retrieve it. "Daddy, look!" 7-year-old Willa Mercer held up her discovery like buried treasure, her eyes bright with the particular excitement children reserve for found objects. Beside her, Declan Mercer shifted the weight of their grocery bags, exhaustion pulling at every muscle. His maintenance shift had ended 2 hours ago, but the grocery run couldn't wait. Willa needed lunch for tomorrow's field trip. "Good eye, Willabug," he said, managing a tired smile. "Someone's probably looking for that." One floor above, Serena Calloway stood barefoot outside her hotel room, searching her purse for the third time. Her keycard was gone. Inside that room sat her laptop containing evidence that could topple a billion-dollar empire. Emails proving Hartwick Industries had knowingly dumped carcinogenic chemicals into groundwater across 3 states. Internal memos discussing acceptable casualty rates in communities near their facilities. 15 years of corporate murder, documented and damning. Tomorrow's shareholders' meeting would change everything, if she could get to her evidence. Her phone showed 2% battery. The elevator chimed. 2 men in dark suits stepped out. She recognized them immediately. Hartwick's security team, sent by Preston Vance, her own deputy who had betrayed her to the enemy. They moved toward her with practiced casualness, their eyes cold and calculating. Serena's heart hammered against her ribs. Trapped between them and her inaccessible evidence, she pressed her back against the door. No witnesses, no escape. The stairwell door opened. A tall man appeared, grocery bags in hand, a little girl bouncing beside him. The child spotted Serena immediately and broke into a run. "Miss, did you lose this downstairs?" Willa held up the key card, her small face earnest and hopeful. Serena's hands trembled as she accepted it. The security men had stopped watching. They wouldn't act with witnesses present. Not yet. "Thank you," Serena breathed. "You have no idea what you've just done." She inserted the card, heard the blessed click of the lock, and disappeared inside. Safe, because of a 7-year-old stranger and her tired father. Through the peephole, she watched the men retreat to the elevator. Watched the father guide his daughter to the neighboring room, completely unaware that he had just saved her life. Serena Calloway didn't know it yet, but the man who had rescued her, Declan Mercer, had lost his wife to the very company she was fighting against. Their lives were about to collide in ways neither could imagine. Declan Mercer had not planned to be living in a hotel at 36. 3 years ago, he had been an environmental engineer with a promising career, a beautiful wife named Charlotte, and a 4-year-old daughter who called him her best daddy in the whole universe. They lived in a modest house in Pinewood Ridge, Colorado, with a creek running behind their property where Willa liked to catch tadpoles. Then Charlotte got sick. The doctors couldn't explain the rare cancer that consumed her body in 18 months. Couldn't explain why 23 residents of their small community had developed the same disease. Couldn't prove what Declan knew in his bones. Something in the water had killed his wife. He quit his engineering job to care for Charlotte in her final months. After she died, he couldn't go back to that career, couldn't sit in boardrooms discussing environmental impact reports while his daughter grew up without a mother. So he took a maintenance position at the Grand Metropolitan Hotel, a job that let him be home when Willa needed him, that paid for his online classes in environmental science. His thesis focused on groundwater contamination patterns in Pinewood Ridge. 6 months of research published in the university's online repository. He still didn't know which company had
You dropped this. Thank you, you just saved me.
Are you all right? If you need help, just say so.
poisoned his community. But he would find out. Someday, he would make them pay. Tonight, though, all he wanted was sleep. "Daddy," Willa said as he tucked her into the hotel bed. "That lady looks sad." "She was probably just busy, Willa Bug." Willa shook her head, her dark curls spreading across the pillow. "No, she was sad, like you were when Mommy first went to heaven, sad in her eyes." Declan's throat tightened. His daughter had inherited Charlotte's gift for seeing through people, for finding the truth beneath the surface. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. "Sometimes grown-ups carry heavy things," he said carefully, "things we can't see." Willa considered this with the gravity only children possess. "Maybe she needs help carrying them." He kissed her forehead. Maybe she does, bug. Now sleep. But long after Willa's breathing had steadied into the rhythm of dreams, Declan lay awake, thinking about the woman with the sad eyes and the trembling hands, wondering what kind of weight she carried. Morning transformed Serena Calloway. Gone was the barefoot woman with panic in her eyes. In the hotel cafe, she sat composed and elegant, typing rapidly on her laptop while sipping her coffee. Her tailored blazer projected authority. Her sleek chestnut hair fell in perfect waves. Not a trace of last night's terror remained visible. Declan almost didn't recognize her as he and Willa entered for breakfast. Willa recognized her instantly. "Daddy, look! The lady from last night!" Before Declan could stop her, Willa had bounced over to Serena's table. He followed, apologizing, reaching for his daughter's hand. But Serena's face had brightened at the interruption. She closed her laptop and gave Willa her full attention, a gesture Declan rarely witnessed from the hotel's business guests. "My little hero," Serena said warmly. "I can't thank you enough for finding my key card." "Were you really scared?" Willa asked with the directness of childhood. "You look scared." Something flickered in Serena's eyes. Surprise, perhaps, at being seen so clearly by a 7-year-old. "I was," she admitted, "but you saved me." She insisted on buying them breakfast despite Declan's protests. "Please," she said quietly, her gaze meeting his. "That key card was more important than you know. This is the least I can do." Over pancakes and coffee, Willa chattered about her school science project on water contamination. Declan watched, intrigued, as Serena engaged with genuine interest. She asked thoughtful questions, suggested resources, treated Willa's 7-year-old observations as though they mattered. Most adults humored children. This woman listened to them. "My project is about the creek behind our old house," Willa explained, syrup dripping from her fork. "It got sick. All the fish died. Then Mommy got sick too." Declan's chest constricted. He started to redirect the conversation, but Serena spoke first. "Where was this creek?" Her voice had changed, carefully neutral, deliberately calm. "Pinewood Ridge," Declan answered. Something in her reaction made him continue. "We moved after my wife passed. The doctors couldn't prove the water caused her cancer, but too many people in our neighborhood developed the same rare disease for it to be coincidence." Serena's face went pale. For just a moment, her composure cracked. Recognition. Horror. Something that might have been guilt. Then she recovered, smoothly changing the subject to safer ground. Declan didn't press. He had seen that reaction before, the discomfort of strangers confronted with tragedy they couldn't fix. After Charlotte died, he had become acutely aware of how his grief made others uncomfortable. But Serena's reaction had been different, not discomfort, something deeper. He filed it away, a puzzle piece that didn't yet have a place. Serena couldn't breathe. Pinewood Ridge. The name was in her files, one of 3 communities devastated by Hartwick's illegal dumping. 847 residents, 23 cancer cases in 5 years. Families destroyed while corporate executives calculated acceptable casualty rates.
Last night,
Thank you both. That card was more important than you think.
it was nothing. She just picked up whatever she saw. Then she truly is my hero.
This man, this kind, tired father with his brilliant daughter. Hartwick had killed his wife. She was sitting across from a victim of the crime she was about to expose. The coincidence staggered her. Or was it coincidence? The thought crept in, cold and suspicious. Declan Mercer, whose wife died from Hartwick's poison, just happened to be staying in the room next to hers? Just happened to appear at the exact moment she needed rescue? No. She pushed the paranoia aside. The little girl had found the key card. A child couldn't be part of a conspiracy, but the connection unsettled her. She excused herself as soon as politeness allowed, retreating to her room to process what she had learned. For hours, she stared at her evidence files. The names and faces of Hartwick's victims had always been abstract to her. Statistics, data points in her case against corporate corruption. Now one of them had a name. Charlotte Mercer, a husband who still wore his wedding ring, a daughter who spoke of her mother in present tense, as though she had simply stepped out and might return at any moment. Serena had built her career on environmental justice. She had transformed PureStream from a struggling startup into an industry leader precisely because she cared about communities like Pinewood Ridge. But caring from a distance was different from looking into the eyes of the people she was fighting for. Different and devastating. Over the following days, their paths crossed with a frequency that felt inevitable. Serena appeared in the hotel garden each morning, where Declan took his coffee before his shift. She brought Willa educational books about environmental science. When Declan mentioned fixing the business center printer before an important meeting, Serena laughed and admitted it had been her document causing the jam. They existed in a comfortable bubble of anonymity. She never mentioned her corporate position. He never asked why she had seemed so frightened that first night. She was just a woman who enjoyed Willa's company. He was just a father who brought extra napkins when she spilled her coffee. But something was growing between them. Something neither had expected or sought. One afternoon, Declan found Serena alone in the garden, staring out the window with a 1,000-yard gaze. The weight on her shoulders was almost visible, pressing her down into the bench. He didn't ask what was wrong, didn't offer platitudes. He simply sat beside her and placed a fresh cup of coffee in her hand. "You don't have to be strong all the time," he said quietly. Serena looked up at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. When had anyone last given her permission to be weak? Her board expected confidence. Her employees expected leadership. Her enemies expected a warrior. This man, this stranger who fixed broken things for a living, looked at her and saw a person. Not a CEO, not a symbol, just a woman carrying too much weight alone. "Thank you," she whispered, and meant it more than he could know. That evening, Willa made an observation that pierced straight through Serena's carefully constructed walls. "Daddy," the little girl said at bedtime, her voice thoughtful, "Miss Serena is like a butterfly that someone crushed the wings of." Declan paused in his tucking. "What do you mean, Willabug?" "She's really beautiful, but she doesn't know how to fly anymore. Maybe she needs someone to believe she still can." The words hung in the air, profound in their simplicity. Declan thought about Serena's guarded smiles, the way she startled at sudden sounds, the exhaustion that lived behind her eyes even when she laughed. His daughter had seen something true, something important. "Maybe she does," he said softly. "Maybe she does." While Serena and Declan circled each other in careful friendship, darker forces were moving. In a private conference room across town, Preston Vance met with Victor Hartwell, CEO of Hartwick Industries. Preston's ambition had always been transparent. His loyalty, it turned out, had its price. "She has everything," Preston reported. "Internal emails, falsified environmental reports, documentation of the cover-up going back 15 years. Victor Hartwell was 65 years old, silver-haired, and accustomed to destroying obstacles. He had built his empire on the bodies of expendable communities, and he had no intention of watching it crumble because one idealistic CEO had developed a conscience. "Then ensure she doesn't present it," Victor said calmly. "The shareholders' meeting is in 3 days. "There's something else." Preston leaned forward. "She's been spending time with a hotel maintenance worker and his daughter. The man's name is Declan Mercer. His wife died in the Pinewood Ridge cluster." Victor's eyes narrowed. "Interesting. Find out everything about him. If we need leverage, he might provide."
You don't have to be strong all the time.
I'm used to it. Being strong is...
Being strong is the only way to survive.
Preston nodded, already calculating how to use this information. His path to the CEO position ran directly through Serena Calloway's destruction. He would do whatever it took. The bubble burst on Thursday afternoon. Declan was helping Willa with homework in the hotel atrium when 2 executives at the next table began discussing PureStream Environmental. Their voices carried just enough for him to catch fragments. "CEO is becoming problematic. Asking too many questions about Pinewood Ridge." Declan's blood ran cold. "Alexander won't tolerate her interference much longer." He looked up at the lobby television just as a breaking news alert flashed across the screen. The anchor's voice cut through the ambient noise. PureStream CEO Serena Calloway is expected to challenge the proposed merger with Hartwick Industries at Saturday's shareholders' meeting. Sources suggest Calloway has evidence of environmental misconduct that could derail the billion-dollar deal. Serena's corporate portrait filled the screen. Poised, professional, unmistakable. The woman he had been having coffee with every morning. The woman who helped his daughter with her science project. The woman who had somehow become the first person since Charlotte to make him feel something other than grief. She was the CEO fighting Hartwick Industries, and Hartwick Industries had killed his wife. "Daddy," Willa said loudly, pointing at the television. "That's Miss Serena. She's on TV." Several guests turned to look. Declan gathered their belongings with forced calm, guiding Willa toward the elevator while his mind raced to reconcile the woman he knew with this corporate identity. "Is Miss Serena famous?" Willa asked in the elevator. "Why was she on TV? Is that why those men were looking for her?" Declan answered automatically, his thoughts churning. The pieces were clicking into place now. Her interest in Willa's water contamination project. Her reaction when he mentioned Pinewood Ridge. The men in dark suits who had watched her in the hallway. Serena Calloway was fighting the company that had murdered Charlotte, and she had never told him. Why? That same evening, Serena made her own discovery. Preparing her presentation meant researching everything about Hartwick's victims. A local news article about the Pinewood Ridge cancer cluster mentioned a maintenance worker whose wife had died, leaving him to raise their young daughter alone. The accompanying photo showed a younger Declan Mercer holding a toddler Willa outside their former home. Serena sat back stunned. She had assumed their encounters were coincidental. But what if they weren't? What if Declan had recognized her from the beginning? What if his friendliness had been calculated, a way to gain access to her evidence for his own vendetta? The thought left her cold. She dug deeper. Found Declan's thesis in the university's online repository. Research on groundwater contamination patterns in Pinewood Ridge, published 6 months ago. Right when merger talks had begun. The timing seemed too perfect. Preston's betrayal had taught her a brutal lesson about trust. She couldn't afford to be wrong again. Not now. Not with Saturday's confrontation looming. But the alternative, that Declan had been genuine, that she had pushed away the first real connection she'd felt in years because of her own paranoia, was almost worse. She needed to know the truth. They found each other in the hotel garden that evening. The easy companionship of previous days had vanished, replaced by wary tension. Declan spoke first, his voice carefully neutral. "You're the CEO fighting Hartwick Industries." Serena met his gaze without flinching. "And your wife died in the Pinewood Ridge cancer cluster that Hartwick caused." The truth hung between them, sharp as broken glass. "Did you know who I was when we met?" Serena finally asked. "When Willa returned my key card?" Declan's eyes widened with genuine shock. "You think I engineered that? That I used my daughter as some kind of corporate espionage tool? It's a remarkable coincidence." The hurt that flashed across his face made her stomach twist. "I had no idea who you were until today. Willa found a key card. We returned it. Everything else just happened." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident.
Did you know who I was from the beginning?
No, I just saw someone in danger.
I can't trust anyone anymore, not now.
You just suspected a child. Do you think I'm that bad?
"Do you really think I would manipulate my 7-year-old to get information from you? That I would use Charlotte's death as part of some scheme?" The accusation hung in the air, made more painful by the connection they had formed. Serena wanted to believe him. Everything in his reactions screamed authenticity, but experience had taught her that sincerity could be feigned. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "I have to be careful. Saturday's meeting, there's too much at stake." Declan nodded once, his expression closing off like a door slamming shut. "Good luck with your meeting." He turned to leave. "Declan." Serena surprised herself with the urgency in her voice. "For what it's worth, I'm doing this for places like Pinewood Ridge, for families like yours." He paused but didn't turn back. "Then I hope you win." Serena remained in the garden long after he had gone, surrounded by carefully cultivated beauty that suddenly seemed hollow. She had made the right decision, protecting herself from potential manipulation. So why did it feel so much like loss? The following days were agony. Serena avoided the cafe and garden where they had typically met. She sent polite declines when Willa slipped notes under her door, inviting her to see the completed science project. From her window, she watched them cross the hotel grounds. Noticing how Declan's eyes briefly scanned the garden, where she usually took her coffee, the distance felt necessary, and devastating. Willa's confusion was the hardest part. "Did I say something wrong, Daddy?" she asked, her small face crumpled with hurt. "Why doesn't Miss Serena want to see my project?" Declan held his daughter close, searching for words that wouldn't break her heart. Sometimes adults have battles to fight, big battles that they have to face alone. Willa considered this with her characteristic solemnity. "But why? Mommy always said fighting alone is the saddest thing." Out of the mouths of babes, Declan thought. Out of the mouths of babes. The night before the shareholders' meeting, Declan passed Serena's door on the way to the ice machine. Through the wood, he could hear her rehearsing what sounded like a presentation. Phrases about corporate responsibility and environmental justice filtered into the hallway. Willa lingered, pressing her ear against the door until Declan gently pulled her away. Later in their room, Willa worked silently on a drawing. When Declan asked to see it, she clutched it protectively. "It's for Miss Serena, for her important battle." After Willa fell asleep, Declan found the drawing on the desk. A woman standing alone against a dark cloud, with childish handwriting beneath. "You don't have to fight alone." He stared at the simple image for a long time. His daughter had captured something profound in her crayon strokes. The loneliness of courage. The weight of fighting for what's right when no one stands beside you. Charlotte had been like that. Fierce and solitary in her convictions. He had loved that about her, even as it terrified him. He saw the same fire in Serena, the same isolation. Before he could second-guess himself, Declan folded the drawing and slipped it under Serena's door. Serena returned from her final strategy session with her lawyers near midnight, exhausted beyond measure. She almost missed the paper lying just inside her door. She unfolded it with trembling hands. The drawing was simple, a stick figure woman facing a massive dark cloud. But the figure stood tall, arms raised in defiance or embrace, and beneath it, in wobbly letters, "You don't have to fight alone." Something cracked inside Serena. Something she had kept carefully walled off for years. She sank onto the edge of her bed, clutching the drawing to her chest. For the first time since childhood, she cried. Not from sadness or relief, from the profound exhaustion of fighting every battle alone. A 7-year-old girl had seen her, truly seen her, had understood what Serena herself had been too proud to admit. She didn't have to fight alone, but she had pushed away the only people who had offered to stand beside her. Serena looked at her prepared presentation, pages of corporate jargon designed to minimize legal exposure. Safe language, careful positioning, everything her lawyers recommended. She tore it up. Tonight she would write something new, not as CEO Calloway, as Serena, as a woman who had finally been reminded why she started this fight in the first place. Saturday morning dawned clear and cold. The Hartwick Industries boardroom gleamed with polished wood and corporate confidence. Shareholders filled the seats, expecting a routine merger announcement. Reporters clustered in the back, hoping for something newsworthy. They would get more than they bargained for. Serena stood at the podium, evidence prepared, heart pounding beneath her calm exterior. Victor Hartwell sat in the front row, flanked by board members and Preston Vance. Her former deputy didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. She began with the standard opening. Corporate platitudes about responsibility and partnership. The words tasted like ash. Then movement at the back of the room caught her eye. Declan had slipped through the door. He wasn't watching her. Instead, he studied the wall display about Hartwick's community investments with open skepticism, his expression making clear exactly what he thought of their claims. He hadn't come to confront her. Hadn't come to claim any role in her presentation. He had come to bear witness. The realization struck her with unexpected force. After she had accused him of manipulation, after she had pushed him away, he was still here, standing silently at the back of the room while she fought the company that had killed his wife. Willa's drawing flashed through her mind. "You don't have to fight alone," Serena set aside her script. "I had prepared a different speech," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart, full of statistics and legal terminology and corporate language designed to minimize liability. Victor Hartwell's smile faltered. "But last night, a 7-year-old girl reminded me of something important. She drew me a picture of a woman fighting a dark cloud. And she wrote underneath it, 'You don't have to fight alone.'" The room had gone silent. Even the reporters had stopped typing. Behind the financial projections and market analyses are real lives. Children who swim in contaminated water, parents who drink it because they trust it's safe, people who get sick and die while corporations hide behind lawyers and deny responsibility. She clicked to the first slide, an internal Hartwick email discussing acceptable casualty rates in communities near their facilities. Pinewood Ridge, Colorado, 847 residents, 23 cases of a rare cancer in 5 years. Hartwick Industries knew about the groundwater contamination in 2009. They continued dumping until 2022. Her voice gathered strength as she moved through the evidence. Internal memos, falsified environmental reports, systematic harassment of families who tried to speak out, 15 years of corporate murder documented and damning. When she described a father left to raise his daughter alone after his wife's agonizing death, she saw Victor Hartwell's composure crack for the first time. She never mentioned Declan by name, never used his tragedy as a prop for her presentation, but she felt him there, at the back of the room, bearing witness to justice finally being pursued. Preston Vance stood, attempting to salvage the situation. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this unprofessional display. These allegations are unverified and potentially libelous." Serena smiled coldly. "Thank you for identifying yourself, Preston. Next slide, please." The screen filled with emails between Preston and Victor. Plans to remove Serena from her position. Promises of the CEO role after the merger. Instructions to monitor her movements at the hotel. Preston's face went gray. "My own deputy," Serena continued, "conspired with Hartwick Industries to suppress evidence of their crimes. He sold out not just me, but every victim of Hartwick's contamination for a corner office and a better title." The boardroom erupted. Shareholders shouted questions. Reporters captured everything on their phones. Board members exchanged horrified glances. Victor Hartwell rose, pointing a trembling finger at Serena. "This is slander. You'll be hearing from our lawyers." The boardroom doors opened. 2 FBI agents walked in, badges visible, expressions grim. "Victor Hartwell, you're under arrest for environmental crimes, falsification of federal reports, and conspiracy to obstruct justice." The handcuffs clicked closed around Victor's wrists. The room exploded in chaos. Preston tried to run, made it 3 steps before a third agent intercepted him. More handcuffs, more cameras flashing. Through the pandemonium, Serena found Declan's eyes across the room. He hadn't moved from his position by the door, hadn't tried to claim any credit or recognition. He simply nodded once, a gesture of respect, of solidarity, of something deeper that neither of them was ready to name. As security escorted her through the chaos to a waiting car, Serena searched for his tall figure in the crowd. But Declan had already gone. That night, alone in her hotel room, Serena finally processed the day's events. The merger was suspended pending investigation. Hartwick's stock had plummeted. Her own board was divided on whether she was a hero or had destroyed the company's future. She should have felt triumphant. Instead, she sat in darkness with Willa's drawing in her lap, feeling hollowed out and uncertain. For years, she had defined herself by her work, measured her worth by professional victories. Today should have been the culmination of everything she had fought for. But the little girl's message haunted her. You don't have to fight alone. Too late, she wondered if that might still be true. Sunday morning, Serena stood outside Declan's door. She hadn't planned this visit, had no prepared speech. When he opened the door, surprise evident on his tired face, she simply held out Willa's drawing, now professionally framed alongside the first newspaper coverage of Hartwick's exposure. Your research helped me understand the science, she said. Willa's drawing helped me remember why it matters. Declan accepted the frame, studying it in silence. I watched your presentation, he finally said. You never mentioned us specifically. You could have used Charlotte's story for emotional impact, but you didn't. Your family's tragedy isn't a prop for my corporate warfare. Serena's voice was quiet but firm. But knowing you, knowing Willa, it made everything less abstract, less about balance sheets and more about people. She hesitated, then placed a business card on the side table. Pure Stream needs an environmental compliance director, someone who sees people, not just problems. The position includes educational benefits. Declan looked at the card. I haven't finished my degree. You have practical knowledge that no degree can replace. Besides, and she added almost casually, I need recommendations for good ice cream shops. Willa mentioned wanting to try every flavor in the city. The invitation hung between them, professional respect layered with personal possibility. After a long moment, Declan picked up the card. Willa gets out of school at 3. There's an ice cream place near the park that claims to have 32 flavors. I'll meet you both there at 3:30. As she walked away, Serena felt lighter than she had in years, as though she had set down a burden she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. The ice cream shop was everything Willa had hoped for. She stood transfixed before the display case, agonizing over her choices with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice weighing constitutional matters. Declan and Serena sat at a small table nearby, watching her deliberate. I owe you an apology, Declan said quietly. Serena looked up, surprised. For what? For not standing with you sooner. For keeping my distance while you fought alone. She shook her head. You came to the meeting. That mattered more than you know. Silence stretched between them, comfortable rather than awkward. Then Declan spoke again, his voice slightly unsteady. I love you. Serena's breath caught. Not because we went through hard times together. Not because I feel sorry for you. He met her eyes directly. I love you because you're the first person who made Willa laugh the way she used to. Because you look at her like she matters. Not like she's some tragic orphan to pity. Because you gave me a reason to believe life can still be beautiful. Tears pricked Serena's eyes. I love you too. Simple words, profound truth. Willa bounced over, her cone piled precariously high with 3 different flavors. I couldn't decide, she announced, so I got chocolate and strawberry and cookie dough. Declan laughed. That's quite a combination, Willabug. Why pick just one when you can have lots of good things at the same time? Willa tilted her head, looking between the 2 adults with knowing eyes. That's what I always say. Then her expression grew serious. She climbed into the chair beside Serena, ice cream temporarily forgotten. Miss Serena, can I ask you something important? Of course, sweetheart. Can I call you Mom? Willa's voice was small but certain. My first mommy is in heaven, but I think she would want me to have someone here too. And I choose you. Serena's vision blurred with tears. She knelt down to Willa's level, taking the little girl's sticky hands in her own. I would be so honored, Willa. So very honored. Willa threw her arms around Serena's neck, ice cream cones squishing against her designer blazer. Serena didn't care. She held this precious child who had seen through her walls from the very beginning, who had known what she needed before she knew it herself. Over Willa's shoulder, she met Declan's eyes. He was crying too, making no effort to hide it. 3 broken people, finding wholeness in each other. A family forming where none had been before. 6 months later, Serena stood on the banks of a restored creek in Pinewood Ridge. The Pure Stream Community Restoration Initiative had officially broken ground. Clean water flowed where poison had once run. Native plants were returning to the banks. Fish had been spotted in the deeper pools. Willa, now 8 years old, planted the first tree. She wore miniature work boots that matched her father's, her face smeared with dirt and joy. Declan directed the project team with quiet authority. His environmental science degree, completed with Pure Stream support, hung in his new office alongside Willa's artwork. 6 months as environmental compliance director had revealed a gift for leadership that his maintenance position had never allowed to flourish. The wedding had been small, just family and close friends in the hotel garden where they had first found each other. Willa had been the flower girl, scattering petals with the same enthusiasm she brought to everything. Now Serena watched her new husband and daughter working side by side and felt something she had never expected to feel again. Home. Mrs. Mercer, she turned to find a reporter approaching, notepad ready. The former Hartwick executives are here for the court-mandated cleanup observation. Any comment? Serena glanced toward the parking lot, where Victor Hartwell and Preston Vance stood in orange jumpsuits, flanked by corrections officers. Their 15-year sentences included mandatory participation in restoration efforts. Justice isn't about revenge, Serena said carefully. It's about accountability and healing. Victor caught her eye across the distance. For a moment, the former CEO who had built an empire on poisoned water and acceptable casualties looked like what he truly was, a small, broken man facing the consequences of his choices. Serena turned away. She had no interest in his suffering, only in rebuilding what he had destroyed. As the afternoon sun slanted golden across the restoration site, Willa came running. "Mommy! Daddy, I planted my tree!" She launched herself at Serena, who caught her with practiced ease. Declan wrapped his arms around both of them, creating a circle of warmth against the cooling air. "What kind of tree did you choose?" Serena asked. "An oak, because oaks live for hundreds of years." Willa's face was serious. "So even when I'm really old, like 100, my tree will still be here. And people will know that we made the water clean again." Declan kissed his daughter's forehead. "That's beautiful, Willa Bug. Mommy Charlotte would be happy, right?" Willa looked between her parents. "That we fixed the water that made her sick?" Serena felt tears threatening again. This child who had lost so much, who had every reason to be bitter, instead chose hope. "She would be so proud of you," Serena whispered. "Of all of us." They stood together as the sun set over Pinewood Ridge, painting the restored creek in shades of gold and amber. The water that had once carried death now sparkled with life. Later that evening, back at the hotel where everything had begun, Declan found Serena sitting in the garden, the same bench where he had first given her permission to be weak. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, settling beside her. "That night, when Willa found my key card." Serena smiled softly. "I was so scared, trapped between those men and my evidence, certain I was about to lose everything. And then a 7-year-old saved the day." "She saved more than that." Serena leaned into his shoulder. "She saved me. You both did." Declan was quiet for a moment. "Charlotte used to say that broken things sometimes fit together better than whole ones, because they've learned to make room for each other's cracks." Serena thought about that, about her own cracks, her years of lonely ambition and fear of trust, about Declan's grief and guilt and careful walls, about Willa who had lost her mother and somehow emerged with a heart big enough to love again. 3 broken people, 1 unexpected family. "Some things have to break before they can be fixed properly," she agreed. "Some connections form where you least expect them." From inside the hotel, Willa's voice drifted through an open window. She was singing to herself, some made-up song about butterflies and ice cream and trees that live forever. Declan took Serena's hand. "And sometimes the most important discoveries don't come from research or evidence or corporate strategy. They come from having the courage to trust again after loss," Serena finished. They sat together in the gathering dusk, listening to their daughter sing, watching the stars emerge one by one. The key card that had started everything was framed now, hanging in their home office alongside Willa's original drawing. A reminder of the night when a lost key opened a door to something none of them had known they were seeking. A reminder that sometimes the smallest things change everything.
The story leaves a very clear lesson. Sometimes a small, seemingly unintentional act can change the fate of many people. A lost keycard opened the door to truth, to justice, and more importantly, opened the opportunity for wounded hearts to find faith again. The greatest lesson lies in kindness and courage. The kindness of a child returning a lost item. The courage of a woman who dared to stand up against dark power. And the steadfastness of a man who chose to do what was right, despite carrying the pain of loss. The story also reminds us not to judge others by their appearance or status, because behind each person are silent burdens. When people learn to trust each other and put humanity above self-interest, then justice is no longer a distant dream. And finally, healing does not come from revenge, but from responsibility, companionship, and hope.